Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 12 of Casual Watch Talk, and wow, what a week it's been. I'm joined by my co-host Kris. How have you been, Kris?
Oh, Sam, pretty good.
It's been we've got some interesting news subjects. The evolving story of the coronavirus seems to be entering every part of our lives at the moment.
Taking up every corner of the news cycle, which I understand, but
we've just watched the president do his announcement, so we'll perhaps mention that towards the after we do the news stories. But let's kick it off as usual with what watch have you been wearing this week, Kris?
So this week, so Tuesday, we had about 2 inches of rain forecast for greater Los Angeles, San Diego, etc. area down here in SoCal, and so yeah, I went with the Seiko diver, went with the my modded Seiko turtle, and on a nice one of the Barton bands. Have you seen the Barton bands diver strap? They're really pretty good.
Is that one of the two tones where it's like two different colors?
Yeah, it's that style. This one just happens to be all blue, but it is those ones. They think they have them like in like black and orange, black and red, those colors. And it's got that keeper that like hangs on to the end, which is like a brilliant genius idea that so you don't lose the keeper. It like tabs into the silicone of the back of the strap. So yeah, I had that on because I figured we're gonna get soaked, so might as well go with something that can take a soaking.
Yeah, I've been wearing I've been mainly working from home, so I have been wearing the G-Shock a bit, and of course the Ultimate Turtle. I gave away the Centric Instruments, that Lightwell, the solar-powered like analog watch that I reviewed. So I gave that away to a work colleague who's just had 2 twins, so he was extremely happy about that.
That's cool.
So a big thanks to Centric for sending me over that watch. It's a great little starter watch. It was solar. It's got a field watch aesthetic to it. He wasn't used to wearing a watch, so I thought that would be ideal. He doesn't need to worry about it being mechanical. Right.
Or battery change or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And it also has one of those... Have you seen those elasticated NATOs? They're like a NATO strap. They're stitched the same, but they're elastic.
Yeah, I like that style better than the sort of the fold over with the Marine Nationale with the clasp that you kind of double over. I think it makes it too thick. So we're just talking, it's like a NATO, but it's elastic, basically.
Yeah.
Yep, I like that style a lot.
They're very comfortable. So I gave him that, and then I also gave him a Tropic strap to go with it as well. So he really liked that. So a big shout out to Josh at work. Plus he's just had twins, so he's up all hours of the night. So
keeping track of time that he's losing.
Yes, and of course it's got a great loom as well.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
And then. Yeah, so have you had a watch obsession this week?
Not really. I gave my wife her Casio Pokemon Baby-G, the 25th anniversary.
Saw it on Instagram.
Yep, it was a lot of. She super enjoyed that. She does Pokemon events kind of around the world, and she's actually been looking after. She was looking for like a world timer. And at one point, a couple weeks ago, I was showing her my like a GMT I had. I've got one of the Timex, the 3 GMT, and I was showing her that, and I was like, well, if you want to use this to kind of keep track of it, and she's like, digital, I don't know. So it's funny. So this Baby-G, the Pokemon edition, has world time in it. So she was super excited about it.
Definitely a little plug for your Instagram, because you've been doing some quality content this week. So at Everyday Mastery on there. That Timex, is this the one that you showed me where you improved how the bezel works?
Yeah, I did. It does. Yeah, it's the Timex, the 3 GMT. I messed around with the bezel, and I looked. It's basically I was just messed around with it and tried and got it so that it could go backwards. So it's like a dive bezel. It only goes one way. It's a unidirectional, omnidirectional, versus a bidirectional back and forth. So 24-hour. So experiment with that. And then the other thing, there was no loom on the GMT hand.
Oh,
so
weird.
yeah, so just like as a random like watch geek experiment, I opened it up and I loomed the GMT hand. So
where did you get the loom from?
So I just used like craft store glow in the dark glue that you can put on t-shirts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so just a total experiment just to see if I could do it, and it actually like stuck to the hand because it's small enough where it'll make, and this is how watch loom works on most hands, because the opening is super tiny. The surface tension of the loom that you're applying will stick to it and not run through the opening of the hands.
You've just reminded me of something, and I haven't discussed this with you. I switched off all of the watch forums on Facebook, and we can do a whole episode on that by all means. But I paused Urban Gentry for 30 days anyway. It came back on Monday.
Okay.
And one of the things that was very interesting on it is there's a lot of the Urban Gentry. One of the reasons I paused it is it's so popular. There's a lot of new members, a lot of the same questions again and again and again and again, and it kind of wears you down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the perennial question came back, which is, can you oil fill a watch, a normal watch? Can you oil fill a mechanical or a quartz watch? And this occasionally comes up, and then people poo-poo the idea, and then also, but then people say, oh, it's amazing for diving because you can see it. Well, somebody who it sounds like they really know what they're talking about, they come from an engineering background, did this experiment, and he's done a couple of posts following up on it where he oil filled. God, I think it might have even been a Timex, or it might have been one of those Luminox watches, and he's done it for sort of 3 months. He experimented with different watches doing it. And his end result was, instead of it being, oh, you should try this because I tried it, his end result was like, I wouldn't bother if I was you.
Yeah, I saw a video of someone doing it. I forget where it was. Maybe we were kind of on the same page, but just got there a different way. I saw someone do, the Casio, the MRW, the one, like, I think the exact same model that I have that I nicknamed the Chief of Staff. They did that one. And it was pretty decent, but then they did the Casio Duro. It like didn't even make a difference. Like you looked at it and you're like, all right, well I can kind of tell a difference, but it wasn't that big of a difference. And then the whole production of like soaking the thing in this like special oil. He said, I guess you can't use baby oil or mineral oil.
No, you need silicone oil.
Yeah, silicone oil. I'm glad someone's doing the experiment because I mean, maybe I would be tempted if it was going to come out cool, but the first one turned out really interesting and it looked pretty cool. But for the amount of effort, it was like, $40 worth of this oil that he had special order.
And this chap was saying that he managed to successfully do it, although it's obviously quite a messy job to fill a watch, and the problem was it caused a lot of drag on the movement, so he was losing seconds a day on a quartz watch, or losing seconds, and the battery only lasted like 3 months or something.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I've seen, that's I must have seen the same thing, because it was like did it on an LCD watch, and it like didn't do that big of a difference. Zinn makes the Zinn, I think it's the UX. Yeah, the Zinn UX, which is an oil-filled quartz, and it's specially designed to be oil-filled. Bell and Ross did one, the Hydroconquest, the different, so they can go down, because they're liquid-filled, so they can go down to, 1,000 meters underwater, because there's no pressure, it's not, there's no air pressure in there. But what's fascinating, if you watch, there's a video on YouTube looking at the UX bounce, and it's interesting because of the way it has to, the way they designed it, and the way that it moves through the fluid. It basically sort of like goes and then kind of settles back a little bit, and so you can like as the second hand moves through the fluid, and so it kind of has this telltale like it's in liquid. But then I looked up how much it would cost to service one of those watches, and yeah, I'm good.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's because it has to go back to Zinn and or someone, an authorized place that can do oil filled watches, and I think it comes with a 10-year battery, but still.
So I need to do my watch obsession.
Yeah, for sure.
The last couple of weeks I've been chatting about this Kith flipping G-Shock, the rose gold one, and I've been watching a few, but they're going for more than what I would want to spend on that type of G-Shock. They're going sort of between $400 and $500 on the resale market.
Okay.
What I decided to do was then on Alibaba you can buy a metal bezel for my current watch. Now it's going to take a while to get here, but I thought, well, I wouldn't wear the rose gold anyway. I just like the look of it, but I wouldn't wear it. To me, it would be too like ostentatious. So I managed to buy a silver bezel.
Okay.
Off eBay, but I know it comes from this store, this AliExpress store. They're quite expensive. It was quite expensive. It was like $48 or something for just the metal bezel.
Just the bezel part, just the face part, not the. It didn't come with a bracelet or anything.
No, well, they do make a bracelet, but the whole kit was like $78, which was a bit rich for me. So I thought I'd try the bezel. It was one of the. I don't know if you ever have this, but there's certain things that I end up obsessing over, and this was one of those things, or whether it's watches, and in the end I'm just like, I need to buy this because I'm just spending too much time looking at it.
Right. You're like, I gotta get out.
Yeah, I've got to get out. So that was my watch obsession, and then I'm happy to report that after what was quite a difficult shipping experience, that the Speedmaster went to its new owner, and he is extremely happy. He's been sending me different images of the Speedmaster on different watch straps, so I'm thankful for that.
I had a similar finally finished my experience selling the I had a Steinhardt titanium Ocean One.
Yeah.
Finally got it to someone who loves it and kind of did the same thing. I was nervous because the watch came back to me, was returned. Someone said that there were scratches on it, and it was like, well, the scratches were where the actual band connects to the clasp. So I was like, yeah, that's naturally where it gets scratched because the metal is literally there. But nonetheless, listed it again, got someone to buy it, and I was gonna wait out the return period on the eBay. When you sell on eBay, if you offer a return, you get a little discount. I think you get a discount on on the listing, or you can maintain your seller status or whatever. There's always a reason for that. After the second day they had it, they immediately went in and gave me a review, and it was like this super glowing review on my eBay account. And so I was like, oh, good. I can happily transfer that out of PayPal and move on with my day. So
it's always good when it gets to its right place. That was the stressful thing with the Speedmaster. So should we dive into the news? Should we dive into some interesting stories? First of all, we mentioned it at the start, and I think we've mentioned it probably in 3 different podcasts now, I think at the start, I don't think we were taking it anywhere near that serious, were we, this coronavirus? But it seems to have affected... the World Health Organization have just noted it as a worldwide pandemic. The president has just been on TV. It's also affecting the watch industry. So we've seen a lot of the big watch shows cancel. Yep. And I suppose this kind of segues into what we were talking about Omega, where I predicted that, well, when I sold my Omega, I was saying that I wasn't confident with the direction they were taking. And then I think we predicted that they might be hit hardest when, if there was a recession or this coronavirus hit China. And it seems, unfortunately, that we might have been proved right, because their stock, out of all the other stock stocks has been hit pretty hard. They've gone from over 322 Swiss francs per share, which is about $345-ish to nearly below 200 Swiss francs. They've lost at least a third of their value. They've really been hit, and so much so the gentleman that heads up Swatch Group now, Nick Hayek, he's gone on to do this trying to saving face type interview where he sort of said that they're not going to make a knee-jerk reaction. What was interesting is this article from Watch Pro. They've cited a reference from the investment bank RBC that estimates that over half of Swatch Group's sales worldwide are to Chinese citizens who live in China. So I always thought that this was Chinese tourists buying watches in the US.
It's that market, right? Yeah.
And they're really, I don't know what kind of knee-jerk reaction he's thinking. I like when you've seen, and I'm sure we'll get some comments on this. I certainly had comments on my YouTube channel. Like with a lot of the stocks, I follow the stock market very loosely. I'm no expert. But there were certain stocks that were way overpriced for what they are. Tesla, a handful of others that were many multiples. This is how I felt about Omega's new watches. Yeah. I thought they were overpriced for what they were. Not that they're not quality.
Again, this is just, two guys kind of talking about what we think. It's not, again, not a no financial expertise here, but I feel like their special edition marketing couldn't have come out at a worse time. You think about like Swatch. Well, I think they're pretty diversified as a company in the watch market. So I mean, you've got Swatch watch, you've got plastic watches, it's total entry level stuff that they're coming up, and then all the way up to the tippy top. In that way, they're diversified in their markets. But is that enough? Is that enough? And then the other thing is attacking everything. If it's affecting everyone, they're kind of helpless. I mean, I think they're in the same sort of, that like, who's getting on a cruise ship? No one's getting on a cruise ship. Who's getting on it? I mean, they're just, and a cruise ship, like a luxury cruise ship tour, like no one is doing that. That industry is going to be, hit super hard.
Well, two things on that. The gentleman who heads up the cruise industry, not to go off on a tangent on this, but he heads up the committee of cruise industry companies are, and he's also a CEO of one of the big ones. He was on the CNBC this morning, and he couldn't have been any less convincing. I just imagine that as he was talking, I could almost envision the share price tanking. But who
the ticker going across.
Yeah, who did a great upload on this was Federico. Federico did from Federico Talks Watches, if anyone's not familiar.
I think I saw it. Mm-hmm.
It was extremely informative because he predicted the watch companies that would go down. And he cited Longines. And that was interesting, wasn't it? That he said that Longines apparently for Asian buyers is their entry to luxury watches. So it's your first, maybe you give it to your son or something like that as a first.
Very, very similar for car guys. Buick here in the United States, you're like, Buick, who's driving around fancy Buicks besides 75-year-old golfers, these sort of things. And same thing, huge market in China. It's one of those, like, this is your beginning status car, if you will, and it's seen differently. So yeah, it's interesting.
We're recording this on Wednesday. I'm probably going to get round to uploading it probably Friday, but we delayed recording this podcast for a couple of minutes to watch the president address the nation. And one of the key things, which I think was a surprise to a lot of people, is he's going to ban travel from Europe, with exception of the UK, for 30 days, but that also applies to cargo. So who knows? Like, the watch is coming from Germany, Switzerland's not technically in the European Union, but it certainly will be classed as being in Europe for this, I imagine. I know he's trying to curtail the Italy, but that's certainly this is going to be an evolving story for sure.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Feels like that's sort of already out of the bag. I mean, the news was reporting that folks were coming back from Italy for the last 2 weeks and weren't really screened, weren't really, getting off the plane, et cetera. And, so I don't know if we're still in a containment situation here, then we're in a triage and deal with it. So it'll be interesting.
Right, let's lighten the mood a little bit if that's possible. So 2 other stories again from Watch Pro have you seen this? The company that makes Iron Annie and then Zeppelin watches, they're called Point Tech Electronics. Instead of making a smartwatch, they've made a band that is a smart band, or at least there's a mock-up of it. It's got an OLED touch display. The rest of it's like rubber. It's got scratch-resistant mineral crystal that can display brilliant colours in high definition.
This is the band, not the watch. Okay.
I know Zinn have tried this. Well, Zinn haven't tried this. Zinn made that band, didn't they, that also had an Apple Watch on it, which largely got ridiculed.
So ridiculed. Yes, exactly. Even I was like, it does what now? Oh, jeez.
And I remember there was a Kickstarter for something that clipped onto the back of the watch. So it was like a circular disc you then stuck onto the back of your mechanical watch. And then it vibrated when you got a text message and that type of jazz.
Oh yeah. Definitely want to get you definitely want to get a small neodymium magnet like directly behind the watch movement. That's good.
Oh, well, hilarious, isn't it? Because that vibration is a spinning.
That little motor.
What do you think of these? Is this an innovation too far? Is it because people who buy mechanical watches want mechanical watches?
Yeah, I think this is what is it? The solution looking for the problem, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just talking to a bunch of friends about watches and sort of that, like, what is the draw of mechanical watches? And we were kind of talking about, like, it's a machine, it has more of a soul, if you will. It's, accurate enough for human endeavors. It's not going to time GPS satellites or anything like that. The nostalgia of it, these sorts of things. And if you're interested in that, if you're part of, if you're gaining enjoyment from that or getting enjoyment from that, then yeah, I feel like, okay, so why, let's combine 2 things. Let's combine your heartbeat sensor smartwatch with the, watch that's mechanical. I think this is I think it's trying to carve maybe a market that they think that there's a niche there that sort of exists. I mean, I know guys wear their mechanical as well as their, to wrist their Apple Watch. You'll switch over to a digital Casio when you go to the gym. Same thing, same thing. I know a lot of people will go to the heartbeat sensor watch for the gym, but then wear a mechanical watch the rest of the time. It's I don't know if you know Frederic Constant, part of Citizen watches. They did a similar thing, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So it's a little like 20 mil sort of attachment that goes onto the end of the band of the watch band, and it's it's Bluetooth and it talks to your phone and whatnot, and it can count your steps and it can count activity, and so like it does, so like it can, I guess it can track sleep too, but it talks to your phone, and I don't know if it had any sort of vibration that could do notification. I don't even think it was that. I think it was just sort of a basic sort of motion step counter. I can kind of see, them, building a niche for that, but I don't know who is necessarily going after it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for our UK viewers, that word was niche. Next, quickly jumping on there before I get crucified by my US audience. Another story, a bit more, I suppose, lighter-hearted from Swatch Group, which is they've been maybe not quietly, but they've been releasing James Bond themed watches. Now, I think this is definitely the second time they've done it, because I remember James Bond watches. In fact, I had a James Bond Swatch watch. So this is Swatch's traditional plastic watches.
And these are much more lighthearted. Like, these aren't, this isn't like the watch that James Bond wore. These are more like a take on the sort of the iconography and the feeling of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. They've done a Casino Royale one. They've done a Doctor No one. The Doctor No one's interesting because instead of numbers or indices, it just says no at every at every point, denoting the time. They've also got Her Majesty's Secret Service one, License to Kill.
I like the one with the shuttle on it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, the Moonraker one. And yeah, World Is Not Enough. Coming to a Watch Flippers eBay account very soon because those are all promptly sold out. One of the ones that was interesting was the new Q watch. This isn't the Timex Q. This is the Swatch Q, as they've evoked what Q, James Bond's favourite gadget man, might wear, and it comes in a nice presentation case that looks a bit like a spy's covert laptop, as if you're logging into some secret database to get your next mission or whatever. I quite like the look of this. It is on the expensive side, $222.
It's fun. I like the design. I think it evokes that, that fun, like you're about to go on your secret mission thing and you're getting your proper British future tech,
Yeah. They've kind of ratcheted this one up. It's one of the skin irony ones, so one of the very thin ones. Comes on a leather strap. It's a good-looking watch. My thing with these swatches, and I've discussed it before on the channel, is I really like these plastic swatch watches, but I just can't, except for the Damien Hirst one that I've got. I know if I start buying these I'll just be a swatch collector. So I resist buying these plastic swatches.
Right. A matter of a year, it'll be like, have you seen my swatch room?
Yeah, I know.
You're like, what do you mean room? You're like, well, we kind of sleep out in here, and then I've dedicated this entire room to.
Before we dive into our main story, let's just pause for a little break. Hi everyone, welcome back. We have a main topic today, and I'm guessing what do you think, Kris? Do you think this is going to be as controversial as the Omega episodes that we've done?
We'll see. We'll go for it. Let's go for it.
So we'll preface this by saying that we make a lot of Seiko content, or we've certainly worked on a big Seiko video we did, got a few others in the pipeline. We are both fans of Seiko watches, but something that I don't know whether this is a good trend for Seiko. They've released a limited edition of 3 watches. They're not Hodinky ones before, but they're essentially, what would you say, a tribute to the previous dive watches that they've made. They're true icons.
Yeah. So a couple of things right off the bat is they did the recreation of the 62 Mas, but it's another recreation. So the one they did 2-3 years ago, I think 2 years ago. So they did that one and said, okay, that's going to be limited, and we're not going to, and you never know whether that's going to be the last one or this sort of thing. Well, they've come out with more of them. There's now 3. There's this the 62 Mas style, and then they have a 1968 Professional Divers 300. So it looks like the Marine Master, but the 6215 Seiko. And then finally they did the Ultimate Seiko Diver, the Divers 600 meter recreation tuna. So that's the tuna with the big shroud on it, and it's 1,000 meters. And
so they've released these. There's certainly a box set that you can get with all 3 of them in. Of course, as with Seiko's thing at the moment, they're limited edition watches. I think the 62 Mas, I think they're all limited to around about 1,000 pieces.
Yeah, I'm seeing 1,100 is what I'm saying.
Yeah, 1,100. They're beautiful looking watches. They've got highly detailed dials on them. They're certainly the 62 Mas is an anti-magnetic movement. Is an anti-magnetic watch. They're using this ever brilliant steel. I think there's also a titanium bezel on the 62 MAS, but beautiful looking watches. But the prices, I just cannot fathom what they're doing.
Yeah, that was I made a comment on one of my watch forums, and from my take, I don't understand how you take a really, really good looking, let's say $1,500, $2,000 watch, you jump over the $3,000 to $5,000 price point where you've got, brands like Breitling, Tudor, etc. And then you end up in this 6,500 entry level Rolex price bracket. I'm confused as to how long this sort of stuff from Seiko can go on.
It's disappointing, isn't it? The 62 MAS one is 6,300. The 1968 is 6,800, and then the Marine Master style tuner one is, I think, around the $4,500 mark. Mm-hmm. I wonder why that one is cheaper. But anyway, they're using they are using movements that are like the Grand Seiko ones.
Yeah,
I will add as well, there is a fourth one on this, isn't there?
Oh, really? I thought I only saw 3, and they're all with the dark blue dial.
Yeah, this fourth one's it's another 55th anniversary one, but it's another 62 MAS one.
Right, it's sort of their reinterpretation. It's like a modern version. And I think to answer your last question, I think the Tuna has a slightly different movement than the first two. So that may account for some of the price differences there.
This other one, this 62 MAS one, which again is limited edition, but there's going to be 5,500 of them. I think the RRP on that is close to $1,500. Now, that's using the 6R35 movement, which is the one they use for the Sumo, the Sumo, I think.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things and we were kind of talking about this earlier, one of the other things that makes this a little confusing is, I'm sure you've heard us mention movements if you're not familiar with Seiko. So Seiko does a movement that they will put in their watch. So the 4R35 will be a movement they put in their watch. And then Seiko Instruments will sell basically that movement, but they name it a NH35. So the number is kind of same, the letters are same. All it means is that when Kris and Sam start talking about Seiko movements, I'm probably going to mess this up.
It's interesting, yeah, this one, it's the Sumo that has the same 6R35 in it that's in this.
Yeah. Now I just looked, so Basel World 2017, Seiko did the 62 MAS, the SLA 017, and I think it was $2,500 or something. If that's
more like $5. I think it was more like $5.
Maybe I was just dreaming about it. I don't know. I was watching the Just Bluefish channel, Guy on the Just Bluefish channel.
Yep.
One of his main comments about this, and he said it when this watch came out, he's like, Seiko, just make 1 billion of these and sell them for like that $1,100 something price point. He's like, you will make so much more money than trying to make, just 2,000 of these as a limit or 5,000 of these as a limited edition. I mean, just the numbers. I mean, it's such a gorgeous watch. Seiko has the ability to economies of scale. They own the entire supply chain. They can do this.
This is the upsetting thing about this trilogy. If you could get all 3 of these watches for $3,000 maybe, I would be on that list to buy them. If they weren't, they've done a great job of them. They look stunning, but it just seems to me like a price gouge commemorating 55 years of... They've got to 55 years because of people buying the watches. Because of because of people love Seiko. That's how they got to 55 years of...
Yeah.
So why create these limited edition watches? Really, if you were going to spend, whether it's $18,000 or whatever, the box set, I haven't got the exact price on here of the actual box set itself.
Right.
You wouldn't wear them because you wouldn't want to scratch one.
Yeah, right. This kind of goes back to your swatch comment. I don't want to build a room where these live. I don't want to build a glass case. I don't want to put these in a safe. These are a reissue of a purpose-built tool watch built with modern production technology. So, I mean, there's, they can mass produce them. That's great. Let us get our hands on them and enjoy them that way. I find it interesting that Swatch Group, Omega specifically, Seiko now feel that there's a giant, that they can tap into this giant market of people that have the disposable income to buy a $6,500 watch, or like you said, the box set, and keep it, as if to think that that's, potentially going up in price. I don't see that. I don't see in 20 years, 50 years, maybe you could sell it for what you got it for, but if you invested $7,000 in the, well, maybe not the stock market, but if you bought $7,000 worth of bonds, you have lots of other ways to spend your money.
You made two interesting points there. The first one is that they're trading off the fact that the original 62 MAS went up so much in value. Like, if you bought one of those for if you were a GI and you bought one on one of your military bases for, $200, which was a lot of money at the time, but now they're worth $2,000. The problem with that is that was the original 62 MAS.
Exactly.
There isn't another original 62 MAS.
You're absolutely right. I think people miss that when they watch the guy pull, original GMT Rolex out of a box, and they're like, well, we only paid $200 for that. You're like, right, that's not going to happen again.
And the other interesting comment you made about the investing in the stock market, this is a sore point for me, because I think I promptly put my Omega money into the stock market, and then it proceeded to... Well, I haven't lost it, because as Warren Buffett says, you only lose on the stock market if you sell. So I'm holding. I'm in that part of the Kenny Rogers song that's know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I'm not quite yet.
You're now a long-term investor now, so...
Well, I'm forced into being a long-term investor. I'm not quite at the part of the Kenny Rogers song that's know when to walk away, know when to run type of thing. So it is interesting if the coronavirus does seriously impact the watch buying industry, or even assesses whether the amount of products and goods that are made in China, and the Seiko obviously made in Japan, but there's certainly large elements of the watch industry supply chain that is based in China. I'm wondering whether these watch companies that are not perceived as creating watches that are investments, or at least that you would get your money back on them, whether they'll suffer. I wonder whether, and they probably won't. They probably, I made comments about Omega suffering, but they probably won't in the long run. But
I mean, so we talk about all this, like not investing in watches, not not treating them as investments, but at the same time, you certainly want to wear something that if you paid good money for it, you don't want it tomorrow to be worth nothing. I totally get that. But yeah, I think the point there is you have a bunch of these brands that are, especially Seiko, trying to trade in that sort of luxury, keep this watch forever, the investment piece idea. But is that going to really transform into people buying them? Is that really going to transform into people keeping them? And then what does their market price? I mean, if you look at Rolex, you look at some of the bigger brands, I think they have a better understanding of what their watches do on the aftermarket, what their watches do, what they resell for, used, and that sort of thing. I don't think that Seiko has a good handle on that.
I honestly couldn't agree with you more. They are jumping on the hype bandwagon with a lot of these things, I think. And I always think about what would happen if you had an unexpected expense for whatever reason, whether it be car breaking down or medical or something like that, or you needed to liquidate something fast. You need to know at least that if you're investing in a watch that you could turn it around if you needed to liquidate it fast.
I don't know. That's tough. I mean,
maybe it's just the way I think about it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think because I'm very, if I can't afford it, I'm just not going to buy it. It's like a simple thing to say. It's hard to do, obviously, but if I can't afford to be walking around with a entry luxury $2,500 whatever on my wrist, then I shouldn't be going, I shouldn't be buying that sort of stuff. So like, this is the same stuff that you hear that, that I'm sure I said before that Sam may, you would certainly echo, which is, don't, if you can't afford the watch, like don't buy a watch on credit. Don't go buy a luxury watch on credit. Just like you wouldn't go, like if you can't afford a Tesla Model S or the P90, if you can't afford the Porsche, do not, don't go get a $3,000 a month loan on that, because that's where you get into trouble. So, but kind of going back to what I said, I still, you still have that perception of value that you want to keep. And I mean, Seiko has notoriously had good value for the money.
Yes.
And so, I mean, like entry level SKX 5-6 years ago, that was the watch to get. I don't think that's the case anymore. But as far as value for money, I would love to see Seiko step up and really start to offer it. Now, these are sapphire. They are coming out with better movements, but I see these in the $1,500 range, and not, these movements they're better. They're not absolutely perfection amazing. They're not, I don't think that they're like a tutor in-house. I don't think that they're that level. I looked at the specs. They're not, they probably couldn't get COSC certification for them. They're not regulated. Whereas you look at a Breitling, you could go to a dealer and get a discount on a Breitling and get a $2,800 dive watch that's COSC certified, that doesn't gain or lose 2 seconds a day. As long as you got a discount on it, you could resell for some okay money. Maybe tutor a little bit more than Breitling. These sort of things. I don't see it with these. I don't see it with these Seikos.
No, and you made a good point. The My Tudor Black Bay was $3,000 less than the 62 MAS one. And that, I know I could, if I wanted to, I could probably flip that round and at least get the majority of my money back for them. And again, it COSC certified, like you said. And
you're keeping it, you're enjoying it, but just that knowing that's whereas I feel like, yes, eBay will be vicious with these in a couple of years, where they'll be, you can get one, but they'll be the same price, or they'll be a little bit more. You can't actually get them, this sort of
And like you said, this could be this 55th anniversary homage to their Hall of Fame divers. This could be a real opportunity, like you said, for them to show what they can do. That over the 55 years, they've built this mass production of watches where they can still pump out watches, arguably with very high quality movements. They can make them accessible to people through their supply chains. They've got a loyal fan base. Here's the watch that we've created. They are $800 each, or they're $1,000.
That's a perfect example. Right. That's a perfect. And then your like your questions about like, oh well, do I go for this like kind of this obscure micro brand I don't really know a lot about? They've only been around for a couple of years. Like that, those questions just go away, because you're like, of course you're gonna buy the Seiko. Of course you're gonna buy the gorgeous sapphire upgraded movement. $800. Finishing is great. They've upped their QC. They've stepped up their game. Absolutely. I would get it in a heartbeat.
And they only need to look at Hamilton with the success of its like khaki watch.
Yep.
Khaki watch. Hamilton's doing, great things, but I mean, we could probably go on about this. And again, we're just two random watch collectors. And this is our own opinion. And with a lot of these things, I mean, I certainly get passionate about them because this is a watch I would love to own. I'm not passionate about this because I'm bashing Seiko. I would love to own one of these, but they're just ridiculous.
It's out of my right. It's completely. We both own beginner level, whatever, luxury watches. We both own luxury watches, and this is making us just upset because you're like, Seiko, you could do so much better.
Well, exactly. I mean, we went to that watch group the other day, the OC Chrono event, and I know everybody was super interested about other people's watches. That guy that had the G-Shock Royal Oak version on it was getting much attention as the gentleman that bought his AP Royal Oak. So there is these watch fans that are passionate about Seiko, and it's how Seiko's kind of turning round and not rewarding them. I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, we're coming close to the end now, but that spring drive movement, if they could knock that out en masse, they could dominate the mechanical watch industry.
I would love to own a spring drive. I was looking at, so they did put the spring drive in one of the Marine Masters, and it's just not a style I can get around. And I definitely have done several eBay searches for, give me an entry level spring drive. And they could kill it if they did something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while you mentioned it, shout out if any of you guys down in SoCal, check out OC Chrono on Instagram. It's OC_Chrono. We went down the other day, had a nice watch meetup, had some fun, met some friends, and had a good time talking watches.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's a great time. The only problem was that I nearly lost my voice by the end of it. We were talking watches that much, but
that's good though. Yeah.
As always, guys, we really appreciate you listening. We'll leave us a comment in the comment section, and thank you for everyone that's rated us on iTunes. We've got quite a high rating on iTunes. We'll also leave the voicemail link in as well. This is where you can leave us a message or a question, and then we can read it out on the show.
Yep, we're over on the Facebook page, so it's the Casual Watch Reviewer Facebook page, and Sam and I will post up a link to the show, and feel free to pop in comments, and we'll be sure to respond there.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Facebook group, a big thanks to Kris, who is the channel and the podcast's resident military expert, still a serving naval flight officer. He's been posting stories about his career in the military as it pertains to watches. He did a great one on Waltham cockpit clocks, and he's also put a lot of pictures on there. So definitely check that out.
And if you haven't, and I did this the other day, I went back and I watched that interview you did with him, and I forgot that he's active. So there was I was like, why are you guys not mentioning brands? And then at the end, you kind of gave the disclaimer. So really super interesting guy. And a lot of cool stories. And I look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get him on the podcast very soon. So as always, guys, really appreciate you watching. If you want to check Kris out, his Everyday Mastery on Instagram. We've talked about the Facebook group. I'm the Casual Watch Reviewer on Instagram. As always, appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.